Jeff, you're muted, FYI.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that was the weirdest, wildest screen I could find. So, or template I could find. So I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna keep it. I like it. Um, so yeah, so I'm actually gonna dovetail right onto what Maggie was saying, and actually gonna cover a few things less well than her, but kind of a little overlap. Because my thought was, how are we a good participant? How can we be good at a presentation or a poster? I thought I'm kind of going to deal with both those because we see a lot of posters, also different presentations, and so really just as a follow up to Maggie says, is we know the old saying is very simple: an ounce of prevention is worth uh, an hour of wandering aimlessly around the conference bookstore. Um, so when you think about like what you're going to do at this of being a good presenter, is the first thing. I think the first rule is, and I say this a little bit, I can actually put it up now. I put up in a slide what Maggie told you about over an important 15 minutes is to be super intentional, right? And I'll come back to that word, but and I just put approximate time frames up there. But I think the most important thing to being a good participant is finding stuff you're interested in. If you are internally motivated, if you find like, oh my gosh, I really want to know this, then you're going to be able to trust your body, your inner clock a lot of ways, and just you'll do the right things. You'll ask the questions that matter to you. You'll pay attention. You'll be engaged. So I'd say the most important thing, one of the most important things to being a good participant in a presentation or at a poster is to make sure you're at things that matter to you. I thought Maggie did a great job of using the Finder. I got my work as an empathy. So the first thing I would do when I start thinking about my schedule is I just plug in the keyword empathy, and I mark on everything that's got empathy. And then I mark down where my friends are talking. I mark down where I'm talking, and then I start making choices. But I want to make sure that I'm going to go to things that matter to me. So I think that's really, really important. And then I think we get a little more specific. And I put a couple days before. Whenever you do it, a couple weeks. On the plane ride there, who cares? But the ones that matter to you the most, maybe there's 2 or 3 a day posters or presentations that are roundtables that are really key for you, right? Like these are the money ones. I hope you're reading the abstract beforehand, or that's what I'm doing anyway. And I'm kind of deciding what I want to learn, right? So I'm not. Maybe it's just a great presenter. I want to see what they're saying. But hopefully I've read the abstract and I have an idea about specifically do I have a methodological question? Wow, I've never really used latent curve growth modeling before. I want to find out how this person does that. I have a question about this. Or maybe it's a content area for me, the empathy. I've never seen this scale used before. I don't see its validity measures. I don't see how they tested it. I want to know. So I've written down a couple questions that I really want to understand about at least a couple of maybe I'm not doing it for every poster or for everyone, but there's a couple of things I'm interested in, and I'm reading and I'm deciding what I want to learn. And then I'm writing a specific question. Maybe write it down. I would typically write down in my notebook. I have a little notebook with me. I would write it down so that when I go there, because over the course of 3 days, I may see, I may have 6 or so posters I really want to see. I may have 4 presentations I really want to see. So I think when I read it, I'm going to remember it, but really I'm going to forget. So I try and write them down in order with the presenter, and I have a question or 2 in my mind that matters to me. Again, you could write a question just because you want to be an active participant, which would be awesome. Nothing wrong with that. But hopefully you're writing a presentation, you're writing a question down just because you organically want to know it. Like, dang, I'm interested. I'll feel like I really got some money's worth if I learn this. If I get, and maybe it's networking. You just want to introduce yourself to the person. That's okay too. But I'd love myself. I love it for myself when I leave a poster or a presentation, and I've got a specific thing I've learned that's going to help my scholarship. It's going to help what I do. Because that give context to what I do, because I think that's what makes these valuable. I mean, they're valuable because you learn things, you grow, you make networks, you make friends, all good things. But where else are you going to have a chance other than a cold email, which you may get to do, to talk to the person from Texas Tech who's writing on again, multi-level models in high school empathy, I'm not going to get 5 minutes of his time in person. So I want to ask that. And maybe I asked him for a cup of coffee. It was great advice. But if I get 5 minutes in that poster, after that session when he's there and say, hey, you did this. I'm curious. Where's a citation? What's your method? A, that you're going to get better data, and B, they're going to remember that question because it's real specific and content important. So writing it down, being ready. So I think this is more about posters because presentations you listen to. I think one of the mistakes people make at posters, or that I've made at posters at least, is I go in and then I don't take the time to really read it right there. So be patient with yourself. Go to that poster, say hi, maybe, but also take maybe a couple minutes just to say, hey, you don't mind? I'm gonna read your work here, so that I can ask more informed questions, make more informed comments. I want to take it and I want to learn from what they wrote there. Maybe I read the abstract, maybe I saw it, but I want to refresh myself. So I'm going to take a few minutes before I engage, other than saying hi or thank you. I'm going to say, hey, pardon me, I just really want to read this and then I'm going to see if it fits. And then I may ask the question I have planned, but I may ask a different question. And I hope then that's where I think, especially if you're a new scholar or a new researcher, that's when you use the time to ask clarifying questions. Ask what you really want to know. Wait a minute, your sample size was 100 people and you did an SEM. I don't understand. Can you do that? Why? Well, no, you shouldn't. Or yes, you can. Here's why I could. Or you used this type of method for this. Why didn't you use this? I don't understand. I've only used this on SPSS. You used R. How's it work in R? Or again, content. Gosh, you work with goal theory. I've not done as much with a motivation approach or a performance approach goals. How do you conceptualize that? Whatever that's interesting to you that helps clarify your work for you. Be patient, think, read, and that's true of poster. I think the posters are great for that because it's just one-on-one or one-on-two. Presentation, there may be more questions you can go up afterwards. But if you have a question you really want to know, then maybe it's worth waiting to go up and talk to that person afterwards. Again, when are you going to get 5 minutes of FaceTime with one scholar who does this that can improve your work? I got a couple more. So I think this is, again, I'm kind of moving now after the presentation. I hope you've listened, you've taken a few notes, you've asked questions if you wanted to, but you're in and I mean this in the best way. If you're at AERA, you're in kind of a beautiful geek fest, right? You're just not going to be surrounded by friends and colleagues who you can talk about this stuff with. You go home and talk to your close friends about performance approach versus performance avoid goals. You may not get a good hearing. I'm just saying. So here's a time to, if you have questions you still want to know, and you're at a social event, are you with your conference buddy that Maggie talked about? You're with a friend, you're with somebody talk it out some more, push it. What can you learn? You've got permission here to nerd out a little bit. And that's a great thing. So don't let the presentation or poster, the learning stop there. Let's keep the learning going, keep the conversation interesting to you. Again, I want you to have fun. I want me to have fun there, but I also want that to be a unique learning environment. And then lastly, just again, don't be afraid to talk to the presenters. I did put in parentheses, read the room, because I feel like I've noticed myself sometimes talking too long to somebody who just wants to talk to his friends and have a drink. Like, oh shoot, I'm annoying you. I want to stop that. But a question or two is never annoying, right? So don't be afraid to talk to the person, go up and ask a specific question, say hi, say thank you, and then move on, right? But don't be afraid. These are all people who are like us, who've gone through the same thing that we're going through, and so I think it's only going to be helpful to you to ask that specific question, and that you're prepared for, and to talk to them. So do not be afraid. Which goes to my next slide. I didn't do all the interventions because I was afraid I'd be going late, so I just did this a little faster. But a couple of things just to remember about the presentation at conferences in general, and about being a good presenter. It's your conference, right? Make it work for you. I thought we had some good points earlier about don't overdo it. You can't see, conference after conference, presentation. Go to the ones that matter the most. Get a cup of coffee, hang out with some friends, enjoy yourself. You belong here. You're a researcher. You want to be a researcher. You want to grow in your research. that you belong. That's all. The one thing that unites all of us in those conferences is we want to grow in our knowledge, and we all have lots of room to learn. Right? We're all in the same boat there. So if you have lots of things to learn and you want to grow, then you belong to this conference, and the same as anybody else. And you paid for it. Get your money's worth. Right? It costs actual money, and you give up a weekend. So those two things go together. Get your time's worth. You have given up a weekend of your life to be at this. Do not, don't let being a little shy or telling yourself you're not worth it get in the way of you learning what you want to learn, or figuring out what you want to figure out, or building lasting relationships or networks. That's all part of your time and money's worth, and it's important because if you're a grad student, time and money are in short supply, both. So do that, and then finally, and then I'll take questions or comments or any whatever. But enjoy an atmosphere of learning. Like it's fun. I hope it's nerdy in a good way with people who are interested in what you're interested in. Have fun with them, meet new people, go out and be active in a way that's appropriate for you, I'd say. Again, we're all there for the same thing. We all have some things in common. So please feel free just to try and enjoy meeting new people in an atmosphere that's really focused on you, because lots of the atmospheres that we're in, aren't really focusing on people who want to be researchers. That's just not what people market to these days. So this is it, a couple times a year. So own it and enjoy it, and be intentional. Right? That's the other thing. Just be intentional. Make it your conference because you deserve it. You earned it, and you help pay for it with your work and with your time. So yeah, I'd say that, and I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for that awesome presentation. And we're going to open up for questions. I actually want to offer one that I'm thinking a lot about because you are, I think, wonderfully hitting on this idea of intentionality, that we have to come prepared a little bit. And I really appreciate this idea of reading ahead of time what abstracts may be interesting or what faculty or other researchers that I want to make sure I meet. What about those impromptu questions that come up in the moment that are maybe during a poster session? How do you also craft that question well, that it not only works, but also advances your own understanding, potentially the research project that's being presented?
Yeah, the first thing I do with that, it's a great question, Joe. The first question I do is, the first question I do is ask it. I do think you get 0% of the questions you don't ask answered. So the first thing I want to do is I want to ask it. I may ask it poorly, but that's all right. Just ask it again. And the second thing I want to do is, if I have time, I try to take a little bit of time to craft my question a little bit. What do I really want to know? Is it the right time? I try to read the room a little bit. I do try to do those things kind of quickly. I do ask my question almost always, I hope. And I don't worry too much about asking it right. I worry really about, is this question going to give me the information that I really want? So, and then the last thing I do is I try to ask it humbly. Because sometimes I'm asking a question because I think they did something wrong. Like I don't understand. So I don't want to say, hey, I really think you screwed that up. Of course, you wouldn't say that, and I wouldn't say it quite that way either. But I really don't even want to give that impression. I want to say, hey, I just don't understand this. Would you help me out? Or so I want to come at it I want to come at my question authentically as a learner, however I do it. So it's it that way. I saw in the chat too, till the notebook comes in, it really does. Right? You write it down a little bit. It's super helpful. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Are there any questions for Jeff? And at this point, since Maggie and myself are still on the call, we can easily open it up. Are there any questions for any of the presenters this evening?